Hello and welcome. This module has been created to support instructional assistants. Module 10 covers understanding student goals to promote engagement. This web module is part of a series created by the El Dorado County Office of Education. As part of this web module series, we have incorporated a processing guide for you to use to take notes, write down your reflections on your learning, jot down additional questions you may have as you think about the students you may support as an instructional assistant. To access the processing guide, please take a moment to access our Padlet, which we will show you how to do on the next slide. A Padlet is an online filing cabinet that provides access to resources. This Padlet will be updated as appropriate. Please pause the module and access the Padlet in order to download the processing guide under Module 10 heading prior to continuing with this training. As we go through the slides, always feel free to pause the slideshow as appropriate to give yourself time to take notes, jot down your questions, reflections, and wonderings. There will also be a visual icon in the bottom left corner of each slide that has a Padlet opportunity. This slide doesn't have a question that relates to the processing guide, but rather is a visual for you to understand what the processing guide icon will look like moving forward and to give yourself time to download the processing guide now. Students who have qualified for special education have an individualized education program, otherwise known as an IEP. One component of the IEP are the individual student goals. The goals written for each student are specific to the areas of need identified through the assessments completed. According to IDEA, which we discussed in a previous module, and the California Education Code, IEP goals must be designed to meet the child's needs that result from the disability to enable the child to be involved in and progress in the general education curriculum, and meet each of the child's other educational needs that result from the child's disability. Role of an instructional assistant to support IEP goals. As an instructional assistant, you will be asked to support a student's IEP goals, which may include areas of academics, adaptive daily living skills, behavior, communication, vocational, gross or fine motor skills, health, and there may be other areas that have been identified as needs. Collecting data around each goal is how an IEP team determines if progress is being made. The students' goals are reviewed by the IEP team at least one time per year. At this meeting, the IEP team uses the data you and others have collected in order to determine if progress has been made, if goals have been met, and what new goals may be needed. How to collect goal data. Data collection can come in many different forms. Some teachers will ask you to collect student work samples. Some use binders to track data on specific goals by entering how much a student does on a specific task. Other teachers will use data sheets or an online platform for tracking student data. There's not necessarily a, quote, right way to collect the data, as long as there is a consistent way of tracking data, ensuring a student is making progress towards a goal. If a student is not making progress, then an IEP team meeting needs to be held to address any concerns. As an instructional assistant, you would not attend the IEP meeting, but you will have a very important role in supporting the data collection. As an additional resource, you will find examples of data tracking on the Padlet under Module 10. 6 elements of an IEP goal. As an instructional assistant, it is your job to support a student's progress on their goals in conjunction with service providers. However, it isn't your job to write a goal. Goals should be written in a way that is clear to everyone, including yourself. If you read a student's goal and aren't sure about its content, make sure to ask your supervisor for clarification. An IEP goal example. An IEP goal page has different parts that you will see here. The first part is the area of need. This section of the goal is identified through assessments that have been completed. The second part is the baseline, which also comes from the assessments. The third area is the actual goal. The boxes under the goal identify if the goal is related to a standard, and the actual goal should be listed. If the goal is to support the student in addressing other educational needs, if the goal is linguistically appropriate, this is used only for students whose primary language is not English. The last box identifies if the goal is a transition goal. The last line identifies who is ultimately responsible for supporting the student in the identified area of need. No matter where a student is starting from, with our support and guidance, progress can always be made. Thank you for watching this module and completing the corresponding processing guide.